So, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us on November's Milk Price Monthly. We're absolutely to be joined this month by Bryce Cunningham from Mossgiel Farms in Scotland. Bryce is probably one of the most sustainable dairy farmers in the UK, maybe even the world. And we're delighted to have him on. He's in the middle of a crowdfunding campaign. Lots of really interesting things happening in Scotland and all over the UK. So let's crack off straight away by talking about milk prices, what's happening. So in Ireland, we're looking at a November milk price around 49 to 50 cents a litre, which is quite good. Market's up about 2 cents a litre since last month. December up at probably the high 49s, maybe even go over 50 cents a litre. But we all know that November and December milk prices don't really have much influence on the farmer's milk check because most people have gone dry by that stage. Next year, as we always are focusing on, so from March to December next year, we're on 47.66, which the markets have bounced back up again since last month. So we've gone up about 3 cents a litre since last month, which is great to see that happening. Hopefully that strength continues in the market. The real question is your processor giving you the ability to lock in those prices for next year? Then 2026, really good. It's even higher again. So just below 48 cents a litre, which is brilliant. And a lot of farmers can make money at those levels. But the question is, are you being given the ability to lock in those prices when you want to? UK farmers, commodity prices, November at 43.68, which is strong enough. 44.21 for December. And then for next year, just below 42 cents a litre, and for 2026, just above the 42 pence a litre. So these are the numbers that we're seeing in the UK at the moment. Commodity prices, you will see a lot of different prices from a lot of different suppliers. Some of them are linked to cheese, some are linked to commodity prices, but lots of positive things happening at the moment. In Ireland, the Arabon Tip merger now is supposedly going ahead, which is great. Passed by 94%, due to be now brought back to the Competition Authority in Ireland to verify that. So what does that mean? Is that this larger co-op is going to have a bigger stake in Ornua? Are the farmers going to have more or less choice about their milk prices? What's going to happen on the ground? The other big thing in Ireland was announced that the co-op have announced a bid to buy back to buy the processing assets from Kerry Group. So Kerry Group are disposing of their assets. Be interesting to see what happens over the next few weeks. Massive vote next month on the 16th of December to see 500 million euros at stake. Huge numbers. And is it a good deal or is it a bad deal? Who knows? But we'll be talking about that in December's Milk Price Monthly. On Monday before, we will have an in-depth chat about that. The UK, big news as well. The U3-Muller merger was passed by the Competition Authority. Is it a good thing, a bad thing? Who knows? Will UK farmers have enough choice will UK farmers have enough choice to send their milk to who they want to, or will Muller shut it down or make a lot of constraints? But I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Bryce today. And Bryce, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Tell me a bit about you for all the non-dairy people on listening and all the people who might not be aware of what you're up to.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm Bryce from Mossgiel Farm here in Scotland. So we are about 25 miles southwest of Glasgow, right in the sort of top of dairy country here in Scotland. Now, my personal story is I'm the third generation dairy farmer here at Mossgiel. Now, these numbers might surprise some of you. We've got 40 cows on the farm. We're milking 28 of them at the minute. And but we're processing 35,000 litres of milk a week. And the way we do that is we work with Organic Herd, the organic cooperative, to work with 5 other farms to buy the milk from them and to sell it across Scotland. Now that all sounds pretty standard. However, we are doing quite a few different things on the farm. So what we're doing is we have created a new way of pasteurising, which is a sort of hybrid between low temperature and high temperature milk. We use renewable technology for 100% of the energy we use for brewing. We don't use any single-use plastic. We use electric vehicles to get the milk across Scotland. And we have a slightly more unique relationship with our customers, where we invite them to the farm, we talk about the good, the bad and the ugly about dairy farming, and we try and be as open and honest as possible. Now, taking it a bit further back, where we got to, how we got to here was 10 years ago. I had no interest in dairy farming. I was away working with Mercedes-Benz, fixing cars and then into low-level management. And in my final year at Mercedes, we discovered that my father had terminal cancer, my grandfather had a terminal heart condition, and my gran had recently been made disabled as well because of a fall. All three of them being partners in the business. A few months after I come home to sort of help out, if you like, I had no intention of taking the farm on at the time. My father and my grandfather both died, and it left us in a bit of turmoil as a family. We were milking 150 cows at that time, housed 365 system, calving all year round. And we went from being paid 27 pence per litre to 9 pence per litre in the same month my dad died, which bankrupted us here at the farm. We didn't own the farm, we were tenant farmers, so the bank couldn't take the farm from us. And what I did was basically to sell everything off and sort of start again with just 28 cows that weren't calve, had the wrong breeding, weren't able to be sold, for example. And then when milk buyer pulled out, and at that time, I still had the memories of Mercedes-Benz fresh in my memory, where I came from an industry where someone walked in with a car that needed fixed, and we said, this is how much it's going to cost you to get a car fixed, into an industry where I was waving a tanker down the road every day, and then at the end of the month I would get a milk check that tells me how much the milk's worth that I've worked the whole month to produce. And I hated that model, and I wanted to change it, and that's why we've went down this road today and where we are today, and why.
Well, Bryce, we probably similar kind of motivations. When I was working in the dairy industry, probably in a large corporate, and saw how volatile the milk price was, and how the risk was always passed back to the farmer. And that's kind of where I feel there's a better way to do this, taking the technology from the oil and gas sector and then applying it to the dairy sector in the same way that when you're working with Mercedes, that, someone comes in to get a car fixed, there's a price. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. And that's kind of like leads me back to a question about so your milk price went from 27 to 7 pence a litre. So who are you supplying at that time, and why did the milk price drop so much?
So that was with a small milk buyer called Son Milk. There was 50 farmers within that sort of group that was supplying. Ultimately, it was ending up in a cheese factory in Lockerbie owned by Arla, but we were not part of the Arla co-op, so therefore the prices were not protected. So when the commodity, our international milk price collapsed, that was at the same time when Russia put an embargo on European milk and the Chinese stopped buying in milk in the massive quantities it was. It crashed the international price, and anyone like us that was exposed to these spot milk prices were just left sort of out in the cold, if you like, sort of high and dry. That kind of lasted for 18 months, and as a small farm, and we were tenant farmers, we didn't have the security behind us. We just couldn't survive that whole sort of onslaught.
Oh, that shows the fact that such a large co-op like Arla has such a knock-on effect to everybody else in the area, and all the small suppliers that are actually not officially linked. And the power of one processor over the milk price in a whole area is absolutely phenomenal. And that's kind of where maybe there's a bit of an imbalance of power. And probably if you look at the Muller and Utree merger there, the announcement and the ability for farmers to change from Muller to Utree, do you think that that's going to have effect on dairy farmers? Maybe not so much in Scotland, but around the UK.
Well, I mean, it's going back to what you said a few minutes ago. You said, is it a good thing or a bad thing? We don't quite know yet. However, my own personal opinion is, back in those days when Son Milk ultimately collapsed, it was actually Utree that saved that group. So although a number of us did go out of business at the time, there were others that didn't, and it was Utree that actually kept those guys going through their sort of different models. So I suppose I'm sort of more concerned, as Muller's getting bigger and bigger and bigger in the UK for the good or the bad. But at the end of the day, they're taking that away. They're taking that sort of independent link away for that smaller business to be able to be dynamic and be able to make those decisions and help out in the very, very short term.
Yeah, so we mentioned Muller a lot here, and just for the non-dairy viewers, be talking about Muller. What is Muller? So Muller is actually the company behind, Muller Rice here, the fridge, strawberry milk here, absolutely tastes delicious, great stuff, and also kind of Muller Light. These are all the brands that the Muller family dynasty own, and in the UK, and then it's just getting that balance around the whole, the ecosystem, and letting people understand the effects actually on local farmers to yourselves. And you mentioned then the banks, they decided to pull out. Can you explain to me why they decided to pull out and why they didn't want to support you through the difficult times that your family had?
Yeah, of course, of course. So back in 2015, when the milk price was on its way down, we were very heavily exposed to unsecured capital with the bank. So we had a pretty significant overdraft. My dad had just spent an absolute fortune, upgrading, trying to make things more efficient. With 150 cows at that time, milking 4 times a day, and they were very, very high yielding red Holstein and Ayrshire cows that we had. So that was my father's sort of legacy, if you like. So Dad had invested heavily in a new cubicle shed, a parlour, slurry store. He'd actually bought a little piece of land at the other side of the village, which, although we were tenant farmers, gave us a little bit of security, but we were just too heavily borrowed for the bank to be comfortable. So when Dad died and my grandpa died, that was a first change of business. So that was me coming into the business at that point, which became a little bit of a risk to the bank. So the first thing they did was put the interest rates up in the overdraft, which was a significant overdraft. Then when the milk price collapsed, they came in and said, look, this isn't really working. We really don't want to extend your overdraft. We can't support you anymore. You're going to have to find a way to get your borrowing down. Now, being tenant farmers, we really didn't have many assets to sell other than the cows. So we started to agree a way forward with that. And then the milk price hit rock bottom. And he just said, look, this cannot continue. We're going to have to get these loans drawn in and these overdrafts drawn in. So that sort of led us down the path of effective. We didn't go bankrupt, but we were effectively bankrupt. We had no money, we had no assets left at that point. And that was when we had to think differently.
Wow. And do you want to tell me which bank that was, or no?
Well, it was RBS at the time. It was RBS.
RBS, okay.
Yeah, but to be fair, any bank would have made the same decision. If you're looking at it in a spreadsheet, then that's how banks think. But yeah, that's who it was.
Because we're hearing really good stuff about Oxbury Bank at the moment, and that they're really looking to help dairy farmers at all. Do you think that if Oxbury were there at the time, do you think they might have been able to do anything different, or they would have had a different view on your profile?
I think it would have, obviously it's a pretty unique set of circumstances that led us to that point, but I think many banks would have made the same decision. But but Oxbury does seem to be making very good noises and supporting a lot of people at the minute, so it's certainly worth a chat.
Yeah, that's good. And one of the things is like the fact that now the banks didn't work for you back then, and now you're doing a crowdfunding campaign, and I can see it's absolutely smashing it. Just a little disclaimer: we're not doing all the usual financial advice, all that stuff. We're not endorsing any of that, but it's just great to see like the public getting behind it. And can you tell me why you had to go out and crowdfund?
Yeah, of course. So, although we've been going for 10 years now with Mossgiel Milk, we have had a little bit of bad luck and a few decisions. I'll admit it, I made a lot of mistakes as well, which haven't helped. So our first financial hit was in 2015. That was when the farm collapsed and we had to think differently. We built the business back up, and by 2019 we were profitable. We were going quite well. We were supporting 3 farms at that point. But we were 95% exposed to hospitality. So 6 months after we'd made that nice profit and we managed to get the end of year accounts filed, COVID hit. So that then wiped out our entire customer base, and we had to reinvest very heavily and very quickly into retail milk. So that was doorsteps and supplying other things. So that used up all our cash reserves, if you like. Everything was going great for a couple of years after that. We won a couple of really landmark contracts, one with a company called Baxter Story, who are a big catering firm, and another with East Ayrshire Council to supply 100 schools locally. They were landmark contracts because those two entities don't generally work with small scale dairies like us, particularly in Scotland. So the fact we were able to get those contracts was purely down to the fact we were not using single-use plastic, because we were supporting small-scale farms, and because we were delivering with electric vehicles in the same local authorities and areas that we were, we lived and worked and breathed in and employed people in. And by 2021, we actually ran out of processing capacity. So as I'd sort of grown the business, I had sort of bought old containers in the back of lorries and things like that, just to try and get, make a room to put a bottling machine in or a pasteurizer in, etc. And we ran out of space. We were totally overproducing and really inefficient. So I thought, right, we have to upscale, build this bigger dairy. And in my mind, my big vision is to try and support more and more small scale farmers. By small scale, I mean like sort of 150 cows and less in today's industry, if you like. And so I went to the Scottish Government with this idea, and I said, look, I'd love to build this dairy. It meets your sustainability goals, it meets your organic action plan, and it meets your local food plan that you have. And they said, yep, that's fantastic. There's actually a grant out just now called the Food Processing and Marketing Grant. So I applied for that and I was successful in getting it. That was £400,000 to build this new dairy. And then I went to the bank and I said to the bank, look, this idea, I said, that's great, but we're not willing to do the full 50%. You'll have to get someone else. And we went to, through Scottish Enterprise, we went to them to try and get a bit of help and a few other things. Sort of kind of rabbiting on here. But basically, we got to November 2022. Everything was going great guns, and the terms changed in one of the applications. And basically, the whole lot collapsed because we ran out of time to try and get this government grant. So we never got any of the funding. Now, one of the biggest mistakes I made was I just thought it was in the bag and it was definitely going to happen. So I just went on a spending spree before that. I got consultants in, designers, planning, started buying equipment far too early, and it really exposed myself to a really bad capital cash flow situation. So that's why today we're in this situation where like the banks are just saying, no, like you haven't made the profits we need you to make to justify this extra borrowing. You don't have the security we want to try and build this new dairy. So what I decided to do was basically split the business up and offer shares to our community. So we call our customers at Mossgiel supporters, because they're people that buy our milk. They don't just buy milk, they actually invest in a sustainable future for Scottish dairy through small scale farming. And we said to them, look, here's an idea. If you think it could work, would you support it? This was back in February, and they put a form up on LinkedIn and said, look, if you would want to support it and you think that you'd like to own shares in our business, how much would you pledge? And who are you, basically? Overnight, we had emails back to the tune of £311,000 for crowdfunding, and we took that forward. We went to the solicitors, the accountants, got everything sorted out, and we finally launched our crowdfunder 4 weeks ago, and it now ends in 2 weeks' time. And the beauty of it is, if we're able to get to that £300,000 amount in the crowdfunding, that means that people actually own and invest in the business. They're my business partners effectively by the 1st of December. But it also means that we can go to the British Business Bank, who are set up for businesses like us, and they can see the demand for our products. And they haven't agreed in any way, I'm not putting myself out there, but they've said, made very positive noises that if we can reach a £300,000 target, they will fund the rest of it in a secured loan. And then we can build this dairy that I believe Scotland really needs to take things forward and be more fair and sustainable in Scottish dairy.
Brilliant, Bryce. That's a great story, and I really wish you all the best with it. I really hope you hit those numbers, and it's so strong at the moment. So if anyone's listening, have a look at the paperwork, get your accountant, your lawyers to look at it. But if you want to be part of the sustainable story in Scotland, definitely be a part of it. The other thing I was going to ask you, Bryce, is you mentioned there, and it's probably quite pertinent at the moment, is unfortunately your grandfather died, then your dad died, and there's a big farmer protest planned tomorrow. And in light of that, how would have that affected you? Would you you wouldn't even been able to even start if those regulations were, if that tax implication was there at that right now? Well, back then, sorry.
Yeah, so the tax implication itself would have made things an awful lot more difficult for us. And what was he? You still there?
Yeah.
my screen cut off there. If tax implications were in, yes, it would have made it much more difficult. But in fact, you're absolutely right. I wouldn't have been able to start at all. So although we were tenant farmers, we would have still been affected because of the valuation of the business at the time they died. And if you can imagine, if we'd been hit with a tax like that, and then immediately went into a cash deficit to the extreme that we did, and the milk price collapse and everything else on top of it, it would have just been game over before even the bank get involved. It would have just been stopped straight away. So I think that this tax bill could have massive implications for businesses going forward. But also, I did kind of want to bring up the fact that it's not just about this tax implication and this sort of change in policy, if you like. The wider issue that I believe in dairying and in farming and overall is that in the past 30 to 40 years, the consumer has lost complete connection with any food that is on their plates. You walk into a supermarket, I mean, you held up some products there. You hold the products up, they're nice and colourful. They tell you nothing about where the food comes from. They tell you nothing about the standards it's been produced by. Yes, there might be a little tractor, a little badge on it somewhere, but the consumer doesn't relate to that. And I just feel that in today's world, we walk into supermarkets full of plastic packaging, full of faceless corporations, full of different things that just are not helping our farmers. And that's why when I started Mossgiel, I wanted to do something very different. So in our social media and our marketing, we try and be totally unique with what we're telling the story, who the farmers are, why we do what we do, and the purpose behind what we're doing and why. So I feel very strongly that it's not just about the politics right now. It's all about the entire industry. The whole thing needs a shake up and a wake up. And we need to look back what we did well 40 to 50 years ago, take the good bits, leave the bad bits, and really drive forward with a sustainable future for dairy.
I completely agree with that, Bryce, and I think unfortunately we're not going to have much of an argument about it because we're both on the same page. But when you look at going from 27p a litre to 7p a litre in 2015, and we're seeing now, we've seen these new milk contracts coming up, and we're seeing like different processes around the country, like giving notice to their farmers. Do you think that these new milk contracts will be weaponized against the farmers?
Well, I think that the new milk contracts, when they come, are going to be a very welcome change for quite a lot of people in farming. However, when you're seeing things happening right now before they come in, now you'll never see any dairy or any entity come out there and saying, because the milk contract's coming, we're making these changes. However, locally, we've saw that 12 local dairy farmers have been given notice very, very quickly after the milk contracts were announced, and with no notice to them at all. So just basically one day they got later in, that's it, your milk contract's over in 12 months' time. And I think that's an incredible shame, and really it's something that could have been very positive for both dairies and farmers to work together, to take things forward, to actually open up the industry, be transparent, go to the consumer and say, we make the best products in the world right here. And actually, what we're doing now is we're finding ways to weaponize it, getting legals involved, doing everything we can to try and suppress everything to keep it the same. I think it's a massive missed opportunity, and I really feel sorry for these small scale farmers locally that are losing their milk contracts potentially over the fact that there's a contract change come in at Parliament.
And these local farmers, local to you, then what's the implication on them? Like, so can you tell me who's the milk processor that served notice on them?
So the milk processor was Lactalis, so it was sort of more down in sort of Stranraer and Fleeceway, about an hour south of us. And yeah, I mean, it's such a great shame. You're thinking every single year we're losing hundreds of dairy farms in the UK. So this year alone, I think the number's sitting about 360 or 370. 30,000 dairy farms have lost their farms since the day I was born in 1986. I mean, if anybody's looking at our industry and going, that's great, it's just totally wrong in my brain. And for people like, and who are in Parliament right now, or even involved in politics, like John McTiernan, a friend of mine who's definitely not a friend, could come out the other day and say that farmers should be treated like miners were treated by Thatcher and get rid of all the small scale farmers. This is the damage that's being done to our industry between big dairy, politicians, people advising government. It's just not good enough. I think we really need to find a way of stopping this happening and get back to the good days of dairy.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And just for our viewers again who might not know who Lactalis are. So Lactalis are another part of like the dairy dynasty. So you've got this mozzarella cheese, Garibaldi from Italy. You've got President butter, so the French butter that comes in on your shelf, really nice package. So Lactalis, 30 billion euros of turnover every year. And then President, you got their brie, and also the crazy one from the supermarket is the Aero yogurts here, all made by Lactalis. So what we have to do is understand, like when the consumer's buying the brands, what's actually happening in the background to the farmers, and hopefully the contracts won't be weaponized against them. But I think there's a big gap between, it is definitely a step forward, but when you look at the detail, we're seeing more and more of a skew towards the processor rather than the farmer. But also, if you look in detail, we've done a bit of analysis on it over the past few months, and we've seen that the processor is nearly going to be incentivized to buy in foreign or import in product from other countries, because they won't have the exposure to the regulation, that the milk contracts will do. So if you look at like Lactalis, for example, 29 billion euros of turnover. So if they were to get a 1% fine, that's 290 million euro fine. But we have to look at the detail of the contracts and what the legal entities, and as you said, there is like so much legal to be looked at, the accountancy bits, there's so much detail that hasn't really transpired yet, and we need to get into that, because at the end of the day, it's about protecting those 12 family farms that have had notice given to them, and hopefully they can find someone else to buy their milk. Is there anyone in the area that will be able to buy their milk?
I've heard a couple of people who are in the right area have managed to get contracts elsewhere. I think Muller and Newtree, etc. Or well, of course that both Muller now, of course. But yeah, I do know at least two of them who have no contract yet and nothing happening yet. So it's something that I would personally love to be able to help them out right now, but I do not have the capacity as a business. We need to sort of get our processing capacity up before we can start doing things like that, and that's very much my vision and dream to do so.
Brilliant. Bryce, well, any questions for me?
Actually, I do.
Right.
So obviously, I think that we've only really spoke once before this, and I think we share a lot of stuff. So what actually drove you to start Concept Day? It's something I've always wondered.
So when I came from the oil and gas sector, and we are looking at, so if you look on your phone any day, you can be told the price of oil is whatever, $80, 70, whatever the price is. And I came into the dairy sector and I saw, hang on. So it doesn't really matter what price we sell at, because at the end of the day, we just pass it back to the farmer. So if you go out and sell whatever amount of tons of butter and you lose money on it, we just take it off the milk price the following month. And I just thought that how unfair that is, because all the risk has been passed back to small family farms who are expecting, the best, the performance of actually selling product at market prices, rather than trying to, okay, let's go out and try and get a fair price and get a good price all the time. Now, sometimes it's the markets, and that is, but then I realize, hang on, there's a crucial component missing here, and that's using the financial markets in the background to balance stuff out, so to protect the prices. Because what happens is, in dairy, we had a gentleman on a few months ago called Grant Condell. He's one of the big dairy traders in the US, and the dairy markets go up like an escalator, and then come down like an elevator. And they come down so fast. So if you're not protecting yourself on the way up, when the market turns, you're under serious problems. So we said, okay, well, hang on, what's going on here? So we said we bring the software in from the oil and gas sector and tailor it to dairy, to allow dairy farmers see what their prices are, lock in those prices when you choose, when the farmer chooses. But also we realized that the processors, there's an awful lot of education needed, because the skill set isn't there to do that. Because with the volatility in the dairy markets, and as you said, coming from 27 to 7 pence a litre, even a big company like Arla having that amount of a crash in a milk price just shows the exposure that these guys are carrying. They just don't have the skill set internally to manage that risk. And unfortunately, it get passed back to you. So 20 cents a litre of a loss. And then how you're supposed to make it up on farm. Now, your co-op ended up going bankrupt as well. But it shouldn't have to be that way, and that's why I set it up, because there's a massive opportunity to protect the dairy sector, to protect farmers with the right tools. So that's why I set up Concept Dairy.
Cool.
Well, brilliant. Well, thank you much for joining us, and so we're going to wrap up today. Next month we are going to be speaking with some Kerry farmers about the merger between. Well, not the merger, the disposal of the milk processing assets from the Listowel plant and all the other 7 different sites all over Ireland, and getting a feel of who's going to make money, who's going to lose money, and who's actually done the best deal. Okay, join us next month. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining. So that was a little pre-record we did earlier on, and what we've done is we've got a lot of questions that have come in throughout the whole day of what we are. So if whoever's on the call wants to turn on their mics and their cameras and ask any questions that anyone might have, there's something in the chat there. I don't know if I can see it. Get Bryce to tell us about the cow and calf milk concept, premium you can achieve, etc.
Oh, no problem. Yes, sorry, that's one of the things I completely missed out in the interview. Sorry about that. So at Mossgiel here, we run as a cow with calf dairy. So that's where we're keeping the the baby calves and the cows together. The way we do it is we keep the cows and calves together until between 6 and 8 months, and just until we see the sort of natural separation starting to happen, and that's when we separate them off in groups of 3 or 4 calves. That sort of started off a little bit by accident. So sort of back in the day, kind of 2017, I was trying to drive this processing business and just didn't have time to milk cows, feed calves, pasteurised milk, deliver it to Glasgow, etc. And I had this idea where I could cut to 1 milking a day, which made it much easier for me and kept our calves healthy without constantly chasing them around about the farm. It sort of grew from there as time went on, and when we started employing people to help me look after the calves, I started to get different sort of feedback from both customers and people working on the farm that, why would we be separating calves? Starting to sort of be asked these questions. If I was doing any presentations, this was a question I was getting asked as well. And I started to really sort of look into it. There's another farm in Scotland does it as well, called the Ethical Dairy down in Dumfries. And as times went on, we've sort of managed to command a premium, which is about £2, £2.25 a litre. And it's out there at the same kind of price point as what plant-based milks are. So the way that we're kind of sort of marketing and sort of speaking to our consumers is that, if you want to see dairy farming done like this, it does come at a cost. That cost, however, is very similar to what you would pay for your plant-based milks. It is a small scale thing at the minute. It is something that can upscale, and we believe it can do, and we have the opportunity to do so. But yeah, that's the kind of premium that we're looking at a retail level. Passing that back to farm, sorry, at the farm price level, we're looking at between 85 to 95 pence as a farm gate price, and then obviously the transport and processing after that. So that's a kind of, hope that gives a kind of general overview of it anyway.
Brilliant, brilliant. We have another question here. Are customers really paying for sustainability?
Yes, I would say that they are, yes. So as I mentioned in the interview there, we got these kind of landmark contracts with Baxter Story and the East Ayrshire Council. The East Ayrshire Council one was a pretty unique tender that we did. So in the tender, you're sort of weighted on a percentage basis for different things. So there's always pricing. So say, for example, it was, say, 50% of the tender one was going to be based on pricing. That left 50% for things like quality, sustainability, things like that. So that's where sort of, going down the sustainability route, and we put that forward. That was where we won the contract, because we won it in price, we won it on sustainability. With Baxter Story as well, we are putting milk into Baxter Story between 20 and 35% more expensive than the next competitor. However, we're doing the sustainability piece. We're giving them the metrics of amount of plastic saved, amount of family farms are contributing to that milk pool, and all these sort of statistics. So yes, I would say that they are paying for sustainability. I wouldn't say it's absolute mainstream yet, but the fact that bigger entities like this are taking the lead and looking at this internally, and it's been backed up by politicians, particularly in Scotland, I think it's certainly something that's on the horizon. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. Another question we've had is, where do we go for the crowdfunding?
So I can stick a link in the chat there, but it's on. If you go to crowdcube.com, we're on that front page there. If you want to check out our pitch deck and our investment proposal.
Okay, brilliant. There's another question here from Mark. He says, 95p. Everyone will be queuing up on the calf milk concept.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a very high milk price, but the one thing I would sort of put forward is it is a massive mindset change. So if you go to your bulk tank's going to be down at least half, because your calves drink a lot of milk. You are saving in different areas, like we saw a boost in calf health, daily live weight gain increased. We don't feed any cereals to the calves at all, and of course we are getting the premium at the other side. You have got the additional costs, however, it's slightly more labour intensive. The obvious one is you're not producing anywhere near as much milk, but also where I see it could really come into its own is sort of either for new entrants or for people that want to retire but they don't want to really fully get out of the industry, but they also don't want to be milking 200 or 300 cows. I see it as a really small scale way to move forward, that you can milk, say, once a day, like we do at Mossgiel. So there's a bit of a lifestyle element to it. You don't have to get out your bed at 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. It can be a 9 o'clock in the morning job, and then you can be finished up for 4 o'clock at night. It can be a bit of a lifestyle change. So that's what I see that the future could be for that type of farming. Can I see it on the massive sort of upscale version of it? I don't see anyone doing that yet. There is a couple of farms in the Netherlands trying it out, but I haven't heard any feedback yet. So it's still very much in its infancy in the UK. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant, very interesting. A question for me: what are your thoughts on the Kerry Co-op Kerry Group split? I need to be really careful what I say here. From my initial look at it, it looks like it's a very good deal for the PLC. But we're going to go into that in the next Milk Price Monthly in December, because there's a lot of information, a lot of stuff to digest, and only a certain amount of time. Another question with the GDT tomorrow. GDT is looking strong tomorrow. The only thing is milk volumes in Europe are starting to come off now. A lot of people are starting to dry off. So things are happening there. I think milk volumes in New Zealand are up. We've seen with the environmental constraints being taken off that farmers have responded. I know earlier on in July and August, it was like the volumes were going up 10-8%. That's similar to, like, let's say January, February in the Northern Hemisphere. but it's still going up. So it just shows without the environmental constraints on the farmers, they're turning up the milk volume. Also, as well, Fonterra are putting a massive effort onto their commodities trading, food service, all that stuff, rather than the brands. They're pulling out the brands, they're selling all that portfolio. So a big shift into we're just going to pump out the volume and try and extract value that way. Yeah, and another question here for Bryce. You're very bold and innovative in your approach. It's not easy for everyone to do. What stops more farmers being bolder?
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's something that I actually have quite a lot of conversations about with different people. So just to give you an example, back in 2018, when we were just operating as a single farm, selling our own milk direct, I had a conversation with another local farmer who had said, you know, I'd love to do what you do, but I would rather build a wall around my farm and have people coming onto it and tell them what to do on it. And that was actually one of the conversations that led us down to me saying, well, you know, we've got the processing equipment. Why don't we collaborate and work together and try and push that forward? So yeah, I totally agree with that. You know, if it's in you, if you're the type of person that you like to be sort of out there, talk to social media, talk to the consumer, that's great. It's something I would advise to certainly look at. If you're somebody that's not, you know, that's where I think that at Mossgiel we can perhaps be the platform for that. You know, we can be the platform for people to sell milk into or sell products into, and we take it further. And as long as we create some sort of transparent and open way to show the link between the consumer and the farmer, and that's what I see the future of how we can operate. But yeah, it's like everyone's got their own unique personality and what they like to do and what they're good at, and that, you know, go for what you like and what you're good at, kind of thing.
Brilliant, Bryce. No, that's some great questions. Let me just check the chat here quickly. Yeah, okay, we got it. I think we got everything there, everything covered. I just want to thank you so much for joining us tonight on the Milk Price Monthly. We really great having you here and your insights, and we wish you all the best with the crowdfunding campaign, and hope you smash it. And next time round, you're doing a much bigger round, and you're going to be taking over Scotland and bringing sustainable milk out, and even coming down south as well to everywhere else.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed anyway. We're pushing hard if we can. So
Brilliant. Thanks a million.
okay, thanks for having me on. Thank you.